Hello and welcome back. I am Conan Librarian with Conan's EDC, Easy Dad Carry, and today I want to talk about Swiss Army knives. Let's take a look. So right up top, I want to say thank you to Anne at The Vine Climber. Her channel is just awesome. She does a lot about Swiss Army knives and just a lot of different things, but the big reason I want to say thank you to Anne is because she got me back into Swiss Army knives. Over the last year plus, I've been doing more and more, getting more and more into the lifestyle and the hobby of EDC. And I feel like I've really made a big journey when it comes to multi-tools. Now, if you've watched my channel at all, you know that I like not just stuff that does things. I like practicality and I like ease of use. I like tools that make sense. I like tools that have solid loadouts. I like things that do things. I don't want just one tool that does one thing. I want tools that do a lot of different things. If it's going to take up pocket real estate, I want it to be practical. And honestly, I had kind of written off Swiss Army knives. I think myself, like a lot of people, had just kind of seen them for a long time. I'd kind of forgotten how practical they were, and this is all a Swiss Army knife was to me. Essentially, the SD. Tiny little 1-inch blade, nail file, and cleaner, toothpick, tiny little scissors. This was just, to me, honestly, Swiss Army knives had kind of been downgraded to a keychain dangler. And, I mean, even in most of my videos, these little guys, for $4 or $5 I was getting at the hardware store, I'd throw them in kits just as kind of a backup, kind of a throwaway, just to have. And this, I mean, honestly, did fine for a long time until I really realized the actual practicality of a Swiss Army knife, the actual utility of a Swiss Army knife. Here's the big thing when it comes to, for me, Swiss Army knives. There is so much out there. There are so many options, and when it comes down to it, multi-tools essentially are going to come with the same loadouts. And if you're going to go for a company like SOG or Leatherman, things like that, there's just not as much out there. You're really looking for variations on the same thing. Now, when it comes to Swiss Army knives, you're still kind of looking at that. So this is the Handyman, and this has a ton of fantastic tools. I'm not going to go through everything on each one of these, but I have all these different ones for a couple different reasons. The Blade HQ Tinker, I think it's the Tinker Deluxe or the Super Tinker, just a fantastic EDC blade, especially because it does have the scissors on it, which I use probably these days. I use scissors probably more than I even use a knife a lot of days. This one, I believe this is the Hiker, because this has the blade and there it is, and the saw built into it. The Handyman, like I said, this one has really become my main, even though, yes, this is called the Hiker, this has become my main hiking pocket knife and multi-tool. I honestly stopped carrying a regular multi-tool when I go hiking because a multi-tool, something like this, unless I'm carrying something really big, is going to be pretty small in these tools, and the applications for use on a small multi-tool, well, they're kind of small. Whereas when you look at something like this that has a corkscrew that still can be used to carry another tool, even Kindling can screw into this from a couple different companies. This is I believe the Firefly, I'll have to verify that, but a little ferro rod that replaces the toothpick. So that's the thing, is there's a lot of practicality in these. This one, and this was actually a gift from my mother. This was my great uncle's Swiss Army knife. This was gifted to him in, I believe, I looked into this, and you can tell actually a lot in the history on Swiss Army knives by the stampings here and a couple other telltales, which is really cool. But this was given to him back in the 70s when he was elected to town council. And I think it's really cool because there's history in these. And that's not to say someday I might give my kids this SOG PowerPoint. And like I said, I absolutely love this. but it doesn't have the same kind of history. It doesn't have the same kind of, well, I guess I'll just say carry as something like a Swiss Army knife, because at the end of the day, these tools are still really practical. The corkscrew is still a nice big corkscrew. The knife is still a nice big knife. Again, the features on something like this are just more practical, and they're bigger for being, honestly, in not that much bigger of a package than, well, this is a smaller multi-tool, but these are absolutely smaller than a Leatherman, almost pretty much any kind of Leatherman. So the other thing I wanted to do, speaking of practicality, I actually got something fun here. I'm going to upgrade the scales on my handyman. So I'm kind of excited to do this. And that's another thing. You don't really, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I have seen some people out there who customize Leathermans, but it requires a lot more disassembly and a lot more, honestly, engineering than I think I am. Well, I don't want to say than I am capable of, but absolutely more than I am willing to get into, I think. So you'll notice on all of these, I also have just a pocket hook here. You can get, and I've seen a few people put actual pocket clips on the sides of the scales. Personally, I don't want to do that. Maybe on something sleeker like this, but then you're really building the sides of this up, and then it sits in the pocket much thicker than I'd like, whereas if this dangles, it can really dangle in the seam of a pocket. So what I'm going to do is pop the scales off. These are the sapphire blue or the translucent blue, which I like because it's kind of a different look for this size of scale. And being the, I think they're called plus scales, I got a kit that comes with, and I got the green because I like the idea of a little bit of pop of color, a new toothpick, new tweezers, this little dangle here, as well as the pen itself. Because, as always, I like to add a little more use to things. So we are going to see if I can't pop this off and replace the scales on this with this new set. Okay, so to do so, everything I've seen makes it seem kind of easy. Now, I really hope that I'm not going to just destroy this. I will be super bummed if I just crack and destroy the scales on this. Oh, I can hear it working loose. There we go. And just work it down, and the scales pop off. Oh, that's really cool. And it came off nice and neat. So I'm going to be able to save these scales and either put them on or put them on something else. Now, these scales in this kit actually came off of eBay, or no, this may have been Etsy. I think this was Etsy. But you can find different kits, different scales, different things like this. And if this really is as easy as it seems, like it is so far, then I will probably do this to some of the other ones, maybe even two. There we go. And that came off really easy. I like that. Oop. Now this is little pin that I had in the scale itself, so hopefully, actually, now that I think about it, yep, it still has a little slot for the pin in here as well. So as far as putting them back on, this is where it can be a little tricky, apparently. Because what you do is you put it on and you just press. Now, as you press, it's going to seat, but the other thing I read about was actually clamping this. So what I have here is a little pistol grip clamp, and, hold on, I'm going to pause, as well as a cloth, because if I'm going to squeeze this, I really don't want to accidentally damage the scales or the knife by doing this. I like these little pistol grip clamps just because they're super easy to use. But you can hear it. Alright, get that out of the way. Maybe I'll flip this over. I want to be careful that I'm not, again, squeezing too tight and cracking the scales. I just want to make sure it's really seated on the pegs of the body. All right, that looks good and tight. I'm going to give it a couple more squeezes, so I'm going to pause, and I'm going to squeeze this on, and then I'm actually going to get the other side on too, and come back. Okay, so a little bit of squeezing, a little bit of trial and error to figure out what, kind of how I wanted to squeeze it. Oh, I may have, I scratched it a little bit. It's not a crack, but a little bit of scratching does in fact add a little bit of character. Yeah, well, it is what it is. But I really like this blue. It's definitely a different kind of look. And, like I said, I picked up a little bit of color here. One thing I'm very excited about, like I said, is an actual pen to be able to add that function. I was really excited about because, one, I always need a pen, I always have a pen, I always lose a pen. I was super excited to be able to actually carry a pen with this just to add more function. And again, I chose the green because I really liked the pop of color. Now, the green toothpick, I probably won't end up using in this. You know, I really like this green toothpick, though. I'll add it for a pop of color in the... Oh, I like that. Extra little green sprinkle on there. And the tweezers, though, absolutely are going to go in this. Tweezers go in here. Oh, I like, again, the pop of green in that. And actually, so instead of the toothpick itself, what we're going to do, here we go, is in fact put that ferro rod back in there. So it actually still also has that pop of green and has that extra function. We'll put this little screwdriver back in there. So I know I'm just kind of playing with stuff at this point. This also still has the scale for the pin. This is actually kind of a cheap little throwaway one, but it is absolutely useful to have a pin. I know most people say for their phone, but I like to have a pin for medical stuff if you're lancing or trying to get a splinter out. There we go. Now, this came with a little dangle, which I do actually really like this. This is really neat. And I'll put a link to the Etsy shop where I got this little kit from. Oh, I actually like that a lot. Now, that being said, though, I don't like stuff just dangling, so I am going to end up... I'm going to put this pocket clip back on it and then string this on there because, well, it's not going to hurt to have it. I may even end up doing what I do for a lot of stuff, trying to find a little more, I don't know, maybe something more practical than just this, but at the same time, yeah, I like having different ways to attach, different ways to grab, just different ways to handle stuff, because that's the other thing. It's not just about the practicality of use, but the ease of it and the way it can hang. The reason I have it profiled like this is because I'm right-handed, so if I'm going to hang this in my pocket, then it needs to profile to the right hand side of my pocket. If I had it flipped inside and I was trying to hang this, it would feel kind of bulky. So this is going to hang in the pocket super easy. I'm still, because I do like this green and I like having a little pop of color on there. Oh, I like that, actually. A little bit of extra. And it did actually come with this, too. Little Victorinox multi-tool, which you could string through this, I guess, or attach to this. I am going to find a way to put this in a kit of some sort, because that's useful and practical. I'm not going to have it on that. So, there we go. Have some extra bobs and bits, which isn't a bad thing at all, especially when it comes to having Victorinox stuff. Now I have an extra set of scales if I crack or lose, or say I want to go back to the original scales. But yeah, that is the upgrade on the Swiss Army knife handyman. Super easy to do. If you have a Swiss Army knife and you've been looking at scales, I mean, that took me just a couple minutes. Little pistol clamp here. This guy, I mean, this was dirt cheap. I think I got it at Aldi's. But you can get these for a few bucks. Just make sure put a towel between whatever you're squeezing. And yeah, so that's, again, just a little art project, just me kind of rambling. But if you say you are not a Swiss Army kind of person, if you think a Victorinox is not functional enough, or not heavy duty enough, or not, I don't know, tactical enough, I think, well, I mean, maybe. Because when we're looking at probably the most heavy-duty thing on here, we have a set of pliers. This is not, in fact, I'm going to say, necessarily going to do the same job as these power plant pliers, which I use to actually open a hose clamp when my wife blew a radiator hose, which is pretty great even for a regular multi-tool. So while I'm probably not going to be able to use this on radiator hose clamps, I am going to be able to use it for pretty much any other small urban thing that I'm going to have to get into, or if I'm just out and about and need to grab something. So give it a shot. There are a lot of different options. I mean, you can pick up... Hold on, I have a cat issue. Sorry about that. You can pick up a basic Swiss Army knife with a couple blades and some extra tools for as low as 25 bucks, and it's absolutely worth doing. So, yeah, thank you again to Anne at the Vine Climber. I'll make sure to link the channel below. Go check her out. And, yeah, thank you for spending your time with me. This is a fun little project. Pick up a set of scales, swap them out. It's really neat. And, yeah, thank you as always. Stay safe, be prepared, and have a great day.